mine off.
Hi, Don.
Hello.
I was distracted there, so.
I'd like to call to order the regular council meeting for the city of Nisswa. It is Wednesday, August 15th, 2018. It is 7:02 p.m. Would all join me in the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With the exception of California, who wants to break into three.
Right. Probably does not want to say it. There you go.
First item on the agenda this evening is the consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move the consent calendar as presented with one change. Under item number 9, there is an application that is incomplete. Required information is not there. If we approve it, that should be on the proviso that information is provided.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So Jenny, you'll follow up on that information? Thank you. Item C this evening, open forum. Is there anyone here who would like to speak? Please come up to the podium and share with us.
Good evening. My name is Lenny Hodson, and we are residents of Nisswa. We live on the north shore of Lower Cullen Lake on Wilderness Ridge Road. And it's kind of neat being on this side. I like this over here. When I walked in, Don it was I think maybe just Don and I that were here to start with, and he wanted to know if I came here to cause trouble. And I assured him that I did, of course.
And I said good, right?
So I just want to speak briefly and say a couple things about our Nisswa Police Force. Over the last 3 weeks to a month, I have had a number of dealings with all of the officers and also with Chief Taylor. And it didn't involve me personally, other than it was involving a friend, a very good friend, who his train kind of went off the tracks. And he's having a really, really tough time, on and off and on and off. And it got to the point here, probably 10 days ago or so, where I had gone to see him, and he was in trouble. And I don't mean legal trouble. He was in trouble. And I'm not going to elaborate on that, and I'm not going to name names just because of the anonymity that's behind it. But what I did on that particular occasion, it didn't take long to figure out that I couldn't do anything about this. And so I called. I didn't want to call 911 because it was not, I didn't think at that point, a true emergency. So I called here, and I talked to two different people in the office and kind of let them know what was going on, and I told them where I was, and if at all possible, it would be nice to have an officer down there, because things could have escalated really fast and gotten ugly. Within probably about 5 minutes max, I didn't get an officer. I got one officer and one chief in 2 separate cars, and they came there quietly. And when my friend saw them coming, he figured out who had called them, and he was going to boogie to the woods, but that didn't happen, of course. And within probably 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes of them getting there, the situation had gone from pretty ugly to pretty calm. And the reason for that, I think, is what those two police officers on our department did. They talked calmly to this person, and, you know, I think we're in a situation in a lot of parts of our country right now where when people see police coming, they get ugly and nasty. But by the time this was over, and like I say, it didn't take long at all, this person, my friend, had agreed to go with one of the officers and be taken to a place where he would be safe, where he couldn't hurt himself, couldn't hurt anybody else. And that's exactly what happened. And I think it was because the chief and that particular officer showed some caring, and they showed a lot of compassion. And, you know, this person that was involved went from just yelling and screaming and wanting to take my head off to crying. And when that happens, you won. And I just wanted to come and commend our boys that sit over on this side. Thank you.
Thank you, Lenny.
Thank you, Lenny.
Thanks, Lenny. Good to hear that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else for open forum this evening? Hearing none, we'll close open forum and move on to D, reports. City Administrator. Jenny, would you like to?
Good evening, City
Sure.
Council. I just have one thing to mention tonight. Kind of continues on with the theme of thanking staff. We've gotten a number of compliments this summer on the upkeep of our cemetery, and I just wanted to thank Tom and the Public Works Department for their great work. So just wanted to share that with the council. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Tom.
Question.
Yes.
We obviously didn't have our 6 o'clock session tonight. Is that going to be rescheduled for another month from now, or just what?
Yes, thank you. It will be rescheduled. I will reach out to everyone and get a couple options to see what works for everyone, so we can have 2 more meetings before the September preliminary levy discussion.
Okay.
So we'll make sure to get that in. Yep. Thank you for your flexibility today with that.
City Attorney is not here this evening. Anything that you know of, Jenny, from Tom? Okay. City Engineers report.
All right, good evening. As Tom noted in his report, Edna Lake Guardrail is up. It was actually installed Monday of last week. I just want to let, just kind of probably, we got late notice, but it worked with Excel Energy, and it was pleasant to see the utility companies out there, Johnny on the spot with us Monday morning, potholing down, locating it, and everything went smoothly. So I'll just say, most of the times they get bad news, but this offer Excel Energy was very helpful and, worked with the city like they said it was going to. So it was nice to see. So that's all I have for.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
One of the things that was brought up when we authorized that was that the state was going to come through with some funding, and we were not quite sure just what. Did they come through with it all, or?
Yes, they will come through with the $10,000. We're going through the paperwork process, but that is still,
It's done? Okay.
yes, will happen.
Yeah, I did send MnDOT photos, and they said that was it. Thank you, and they said we're good to go. So.
Right.
Any other questions about that, about the guardrail? Okay, thank you, Mark. E, new business. First on the agenda there is the Parks Department presentation.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening, Matthew.
It's been a couple of months since I've actually had an opportunity to come up and speak with you. There's been a lot of development going on in both the parks and the process of our Gull Lake Trail. So I just wanted to take a couple of minutes. I don't want to waste anybody's time. I know a lot of you have been out there and visited the park already, but I did want to show you a couple of items that are part of our park process, where we're at, what's already happened, and then what our next steps are going to be. And then I will also talk about the Gull Lake Trail, and then we will kind of wrap up with some ancillary things that are important to understand and know about going forward as both the park and the trail kind of hit their stride here. This has been a lot of fun this summer. This has been pretty exciting. On the slide, you'll note that there is a sign. That is the approved design by the Parks Commission just last week, 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks.
City engineer Mark Hallen and I went out and visually identified the location out there. He's going to come back with the surveys just to confirm the property line location between us and the DNR property, and they're getting quotes together both for the masonry base and for the sign itself. Mike Sedevy is doing the work, which was a request from the donor, which is the Arnie and Joanne Johnson. This is if you, in the very small print at the bottom, it does say Arnie and Joanne Johnson, Nisswa Lake Park and Recreation Area. That is their request for naming rights for their $300,000 donation for the purchase of the property 10 years ago or so. That will be installed here this fall yet. So.
I have a question about the sign, Matthew.
Sure.
The posts themselves, are they log?
They are cedar log, yep.
And are they set down in the...
In the masonry? No.
Yeah.
No, that would deteriorate too quickly if it was down in the concrete itself. There's a metal post that goes down, and then the log is placed within the metal post.
Okay. But it stays above above the top.
Yep.
Okay. Because that was a problem that that the city's experienced with the Spirit sign was rotting at that juncture. So.
Yep. I met with both the mason and the sign designer last week, and that was a discussion point. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So does the pipe go up inside the log then?
It's embedded into the masonry concrete on the bottom, and then it's a base that the log gets attached to.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. That was my question.
Good. Yeah, feel free to jump in anytime if anybody needs. This is a water garden. There is a low spot that was identified, very easily identified based on the water retention in that area. We did have additional dollars left from the Millie Jertson donation for the pavilion that were used to do some plantings in this area. It was relatively inexpensive, and it was the wishes of the donor to do it. We still have some larger trees that will be put in the fall when the season is optimal for tree planting, but we're going to have some maple trees planted as well for Millie up in the park. This is the dock. We have 4 dock slips out at the Nisswa Lake Park. These docks were donated by DH Docks. They were previously located over at the Doolam Landing. When the DNR opened their landing, then the Doolams made their land private again, and so the DH Docks took their docks and donated them to us. We did the transfer, I believe, right away in April. They went in just about the week the ice went out, which was a great service on the part of DH Docks. And they're easily expandable, so we can add to them. It's a current product line for them, so as donations come in, we have the option of expanding these docks. They are used a lot. The one letter that I have received about this whole park development was, when are you going to bring in more docks? Every time I come up there, my family can't get off and go into town. So I think that they're certainly valuable for the restaurants, bars, shopping in Nisswa. I think people are certainly taking advantage of them, utilizing the park trail system as a through pass to the tunnel to downtown. I think it's a nice addition. Any questions on the docks at all?
Who's responsible for taking them down in the winter?
Great question. I put it out to bid. It's not something that I really wanted to do. We did come up, and bear with me, Brado Dock Service. They came in with a low bid at $150, which is, for what it is really inexpensive. And we're very grateful to have that low bid. So we took advantage of the bid process in a lot of these things, even if it was only going to be $200. Let's try to do the best for the community and for our pocketbook at the city, and do right for the taxpayers and get the best deal as possible. So we did a lot of little projects on a bid process, much like we did for the planting of the water garden as well. So we went to Copper Creek Landscaping and to Landsberg, and they each came with presentations and what to do and why. And we whittled down the Landsberg bid a little bit, but they were still several times more than what the local Copper Creek was available to do. So
I was actually I was out there this week and kind of walked the whole park, and it's coming along nicely. One piece that I was actually kind of amazed by is when I was out on the dock and looking down at the bottom. There's actually a pretty hard bottom there.
yeah, now that the motors have been kind of churning up that area, you can see the bottom.
Yeah, there's a hard gravel bottom
I just noted that myself as I was just out there with the city engineer and with Reed Larson. He met us out there as well, Friends of Nisswa Lake Park member, to look at the sign location on the trail. So yeah, I noted that as well, that there you can see some little pebbles and some solid surface underneath there now that the weeds are all kind of churned up in those spots where the engines come in and go.
Yeah, that may have some potential in the future.
I've got a couple of slides here that are just going to show the construction of the pavilion. This is the concrete base going in. I didn't do that. I can't see that far. These are the uprights going up. It's just about complete, still missing some of the skirt on the bottom of the roof line. As you can see, the concrete goes out 2 feet beyond for a drip from the roof line. So we're not going to have erosion around the pavilion itself from water coming off the roof. There were our final inspection with High Tech, who did the installation. There were 2 roof panels that were bent. So they are going to come back and replace those panels. We do have them out at the Public Works building. So we're going to get those two final roof panels replaced, and just a little ding, and unfortunately they didn't catch it, and that's going to be done here shortly. Let's see, the next thing. Those of you that haven't met Millie, that is her on the left. We had the first picnic in the park as soon as that pavilion was in. Joe from Copper Creek offered the use of his Ranger, and we brought her over in the Ranger from the downtown park by the Pocket Park, down through the tunnel and out to the park for a picnic. I got her as far so she could see the docks. Got a nice look and pictures of the pavilion, of her stone with her and her husband Scott's names on it, and the water garden. And she was just absolutely amazed that it got so far so quickly. I'm literally not doing anything here.
How's Copper Creek doing with the steps and stuff?
Steps are in.
Okay.
I went over there just now and took a picture of it, but I didn't get it added to my slideshow. So it does have steps. It is a little weird because the steps are about 6 feet from the current dock location, right? So next year, when the docks go back in, they'll be at the base of the steps. But right now, it goes down to that ice ridge, that flat spot right at the edge of the water. So you have to go down there and then walk over about 6 feet to get to the dock. But next year, you'll go right down the steps and straight onto the dock, as we'll place the dock over. And that was for a couple of different reasons. We wouldn't have to take out any big trees, and we wanted to keep as much canopy separating the park and the lake. We wanted to maintain that visual leafy canopy just from noise, from visual from the lake. We didn't want it to, the last thing we want is to have a pure sight line all the way to the highway. So this was one of the main things for us and for the Friends of Nisswa Lake Park and the Parks Commission to maintain as much canopy as we can around the outside by the lake. So that was the first picnic, and this is her stone. If you haven't been down there to take a look at it, with gratitude and appreciation, 2 different donations, one for $35,000 and one for $50,000. Very generous, and she really enjoyed her time out there. We're hoping to get another picnic in before the end of the summer. Before I go on to Gull Lake Trail, I just wanted to talk a couple of things about the Friends of Nisswa Lake Park. Number one, the Parks Commission is working with the Friends of Nisswa Lake Park to get new additional members on their committee. We do currently have an ad on Facebook, on our website, and it is going into this week's 3 papers. So it will be in the Dispatch, the Echo, and the Echoland Shopper. So those 3. So this ad will be in all 3 of them. I'm just going to read out the highlights of it. The Friends of Nisswa Lake Park are looking to expand their leadership team to promote and fundraise for the final stages of park development. The Friends of Nisswa Lake Park is a registered nonprofit dedicated to the completion of the new Nisswa Lake Park, which now has bike trails, dockage for convenient access to Nisswa, and a park pavilion with electricity. No experience is necessary, but interested applicants should have a passion for parks, trails, and public green spaces, along with the contact information. So we're hopeful that we get a good bevy of new candidates to partake and help support the Friends of Nisswa Lake's endeavor going forward. The other thing I wanted to share about the Friends of Nisswa Lake Park, I did get their annual report. Their fiscal year ended on June 30th. So in the year July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2018, they had contributions of $21,015. Of those dollars, and their current balance is $46,347.53. Of that, $18,500 is dedicated to signage, and the rest of it is in a general fund and can be used for any development out there in support of our current projects, and then however future development and donations come forward, this can support that. So $21,000 in this last year is a great number. 30 individual donors, average donation was $533, and there were a couple of grants that were not identified in that number. So we did get a grant from the Marguerite Casey Foundation for $5,000, and then we did get a grant from the Essentia St. Joe's Foundation here locally in Brainerd for $8,000, and that is dedicated to the bike shelter that is going to be installed this fall as well. So that is what I have on Nisswa Lake Park. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Moving on to the Gull Lake Trail. This was a logo that was prepared by Fairview Township as part of their promotions a couple years ago. Lakeshore, us, and Fairview are using this logo going forward. And if anybody noticed this on the big stone on County Road 77, this was a really unique, somebody really took some time to get that created and got us a lot of talk on the street. It was great. I wish I would have known who it was. That was a neat thing to do for us. We are having a community meeting. It's on next Thursday over at the Community Event Center here in Nisswa. It is an open house. We will have it's being hosted by the steering committee. We'll be having maps which will show the potential trail location. We did a mass mailing of 270 residents that either have homes right along the potential trail route or that lived on feeder streets that feed out to those trail routes. It is in the paper tomorrow. Dispatch and Facebook. The chamber has promoted it within their newsletter. So the word is out there. This has been viewed 4,500 times. So on Facebook. So the social media aspect of marketing these events is growing leaps and bounds, and we're getting a lot of feedback on it. There are 8 people that have said they are going to be attending, and 49 people are interested. And that's just in the last couple of days. So we will do another boost on Monday, which is you pay $20 and it really blasts your local area. And hopefully we'll get a really good turnout for that. We did a second mailing to those directly impacted by the trail location. That mailer just went out today. I don't have a copy of it. I should have handed it out. But it shows it is a note saying, we really want your feedback. Please come to this open house. This trail is going to impact your property. We want you to be aware and would like either comments, support, whatever it takes for us to get you to come. So we had that go out, and that was to 33 people that live directly on the trail location, 33 residents. At the event itself, it'll be an open house type of thing.
And
Go, Gary.
can I just interrupt you for a second? And on that mailer that went out to the affected landowners, there was a map on there so they could look and see.
Yep. A map. A copy of this invitation was also attached to it, so they know the time, date, have all the particulars, just in case they didn't get the original postcard or get lost. Those things kind of, community open house, okay. This was a two-page trifold flyer that went out today. So there will be greeters. There will be 2 large maps showing the entire trail location, and then there will be 5 blown-up versions of sections. We are going to man each of them. So if you have a concern about a particular area, you can go to that area and talk to those people, and they will have the knowledge and base of to what's going on with the information that's been offered to us by our city engineer, WSN, who's handling this project from the map perspective, and Justin's been doing a good job in creating those for us. We're really grateful to have their support in this. So we are really looking forward to a great meeting, getting a lot of great feedback, and seeing where that takes the steering committee next. So we are creating a lot of partnerships with this. WSN, Kathy Moore is supporting us in the grant writing for the legacy funding. Terry Hastings, obviously, with the city of Lakeshore. The last phase, they had a fundraising meeting last week, which they had kind of a community meeting, but it was mostly based on getting donations from the community members. WSN presented their information about the trail route. We presented our potential trail route, and every other community that's involved, East Gull Lake, Fairview Township, they all shared, okay, what is the grand picture of this going to look like when it's done? And what can the community expect from it? What is the connection to Nisswa going to really look like, and how is it going to affect downtown and the connection to the Paul Bunyan Trail? So it was a really nice meeting. I was glad to take part. That is all that I have for you guys tonight. Let's see. Anything else here? Yep. That is it. Any questions on the Gull Lake Trail?
Have you gotten any negative feedback up to this point?
I have not. Actually, I haven't got any community feedback at all. The mailers went out 2 weeks ago. It's been in the paper. It's going to be in the paper again this week. Yeah. There was a very nice article that described, it wasn't a picture, a map, but there was a nice article in the paper that described the trail route, and it was very accurate in its description. So people could visualize if they chose to figure that out. But this is going to be a great opportunity, and we're really looking forward to getting this out to the public.
It is exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting. It's going to be fun to see it.
This
all come together.
has been the best summer for me professionally, personally. It's just been a lot of fun, and the people that I've been working with, both on the commissions and the council and the steering committee, it's just been a lot of fun. It's been really interesting. It's been difficult, but it's been very rewarding. So I'm very grateful.
We've been lucky, especially, well, with the regular Park and Rec Commission certainly, been great, but the Gull Lake Trail Steering Committee, we've been lucky with some really, really good people, a lot of talent there, a lot of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, agreed.
Other than Ross.
I thought that was just taken for granted.
It's 4 months. 4 months, Ross.
I know.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthew.
Item E2 on the agenda this evening, recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission in regards to ordinance amendment 019-18, consideration, find my spot again, of the open space development standards zoning ordinance amendment. Desmond?
Good evening, Council. Yes, tonight what we're bringing before you is a recommendation from your Planning and Zoning Commission with regard to the open space development standards in our zoning ordinance. And I'll touch base with a few slides after I go over a few things here. In our present zoning ordinance, we currently require properties that are more than 10 acres in size to be developed under an open space development type of concept or scenario. And what that essentially does is it requires lots to essentially be small. It requires a minimum of 50% of that property to be developed as an open space, to be held in perpetuity, and that would be maintained by a partnership or an HOA or perhaps a professional management company like Grandview. So what we are proposing tonight is that we change the language, we revise it so that we do not require this to occur within the open space residential zone district, but that we encourage it. And I'm going to go over a few slides right now, and I'll just kind of demonstrate what we're looking at. So what you're looking at right now is, it's actually a project that we currently are reviewing and processing. The applicant would like to just develop this 13-acre parcel into 4 separate lots, each being more than 100,000 square feet in size, essentially under our standard provisions of the open space residential zone district. But with the OSD's overlay that they'd have to put on it, they would be required, that green area represents approximately 50% of that area. And thus they would be only able to develop like about 1.25 acre size lots. So it essentially reduces the lot size and it would have a open space area. One issue that I've seen several times is when you have a smaller homeowners association that has a piece of ground that they really can't develop, use, it's supposed to remain in its pristine state, and it's been dedicated as an open space tract on a plat and cannot be developed, there's a tendency sometimes for the homeowners association not to pay its taxes anymore. And when that happens, it can go into tax forfeiture be tax forfeited. And so, next slide. So this is what the applicant would like. Do 4 lots as permitted under the standard provisions for open space residential. That's a current example. They wouldn't be, we would encourage it, but we would not require it with this zone change. Next slide. This right here is the one development we have done under the OSD development standards. This is Fawn Ridge up on the northwest side of town, and it is on Lake Edna, is that right? Mm-hmm. Oh, it's on Fawn Lake.
On Edna, yeah.
Yeah, and so the box up on the right represents, generally what a 100,000 square foot lot would look like. And as you can see, the green area is all the area that has been maintained in open space in that. The largest lot in that development is about 22,000 square feet, even though this is in an OSR zoning district that has the 100,000 square foot minimum lot size. It was developed under our provisions that allow for this to happen. And it's a good thing. It's something we want to see, especially when you're dealing with these kinds of environments. You can see an area that's sort of blue down towards the bottom. That's a large wetland area, and there's some wetland areas along Fawn Lake as well. So rather than to develop under conventional standards, next slide. If we didn't have these provisions that allow density transfers to occur, this is maybe what Fawn Ridge could have looked like, each being 100,000 square foot lot minimum size. They would have to stay 30 feet away from wetlands, and the yield wouldn't be as high. They'd get far less units, and then it also would have put a lot of open space, a lot of natural areas into private ownership. And it's if you have a well-managed company, such as a Grandview, that maintains grounds well, then the prior example is probably preferable to what we see here. So by changing the ordinance, we still allow for the open space development. We're just not requiring it to occur for properties more than 10 acres in size. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer questions that you may have.
So is that group paying their taxes?
Yes, we are.
Just kidding.
You're not going to default on that? You're paying your taxes?
Yes.
Good.
So the primary reason for this is, so in the first example, the 4 lots and the green space.
Yeah.
That green space is association space then?
It would need to be maintained by an HOA consisting of 4 properties.
Is the developer for or against that idea?
He would prefer not to do that.
Sure.
Just for some of the reasons I just mentioned, it creates some smaller lots, a little less flexibility for smaller building envelopes, if you will.
Part of the problem in the homeowners association has been in effect for a couple of years. People get tired of paying into it to maintain and whatever, and they just forget about doing it, and it gets ratty and everything else. Nobody takes care of it, and then they stop paying the taxes on it. Goes to the county, and then we get the notice from the county they want to sell lots, but they can't sell it because it's not buildable or whatever. And this partially solves that problem.
No, it seems to me like it's probably a pretty good idea. Because I'm yet to find an association, a homeowners association, that after 5 to 10 years, they really function very well. And I've been around a good number of them.
Yeah.
So
particularly the small, very, very small ones have that problem.
Then, to actually have ownership makes good sense, I believe, for my thinking anyway.
I mean, there are certain restrictions to impervious area that still exist for each one of these lots. So will be, say on this scenario where this person wants to develop the 4 lots, there still will be a huge area which they cannot even develop because it would be, we have limitations on our impervious coverage in the OSR of 15%. So,
Well, as I recall, and Gary, you may have been on planning and zoning at that time too, there was a big concern when big tracts of land and family resorts, old resorts were being sold off, and how to maintain green space. And I think some of what is now on the books kind of came out of that. It was looking to really protect and keep green space. And, but I can certainly see advantage. And that was a pretty protective time too. There was a lot of people who were really worried about that.
Well, Mr. Mayor,
I'll make a motion to accept the ordinance amendment change to 019-18, consideration of open space development, standard zoning ordinance amended as presented here.
I'll second that, but I think we should also authorize the administrator to publish the abbreviated version.
We'll need to do that in a separate motion.
Okay.
So we'll just repeat it, to publish the ordinance summary after this one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second by Jacobs. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Then I'll move to allow the
Motion
clerk
carries.
to publish the ordinance amendment.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. E3, recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission in regards to creation of a subcommittee to review exterior finishes, ordinance language for highway business and commercial waterfront districts. Desmond, do you want to give us some background on that?
yeah, I'll give you a brief overview. Right now, the Planning and Zoning Commission are considering a number of zoning ordinance amendments that they've been looking to get to for quite a while. One of them pertain to architectural materials and colors that could be potentially looked at as far as regulation. And we had a meeting last month, and we had someone from the chamber speak on this item, asking that the Mayor and City Council, before the Planning Commission took action on it, that there should be a committee consisting of more than maybe just the Planning Commission, but community members and chamber business owners that would be involved with the subcommittee that would look to find out what kind of ordinances we would want to put in place. So, and this would be only applicable, of course, to commercial development within the city. So the request is to form a subcommittee. Exactly who might be on that committee is a good question, but that's what we're asking for from the council.
What are the current issues, concerns, or problems that planning and zoning is seeing? That kind of brings this up.
Yeah, well, there are some materials that probably may not be appropriate for our commercial buildings. You say fiberglass, it's not a very durable material. It's not something you would anticipate seeing. So there's some things that they probably would like to get rid of, and some materials that we don't currently have within our zoning ordinance, such as composite wood siding, and potentially metal or different kinds of metal. Metal paneling. There are some very attractive features out there that could be considered for commercial development. So some of those things could be included as materials that could be used in our commercial environments. The other component was color, and with the provisions that were sent up to the Planning Commission, we encouraged that that Main Street be essentially left in place, not regulated in any manner. That's kind of part of what it is. It's kind of festive. It's got all kinds of different colors happening, and then some of the traditional earth tone up north feel to it as well. So it's an eclectic feel, and it makes it unique. One component as well, though, is we were looking at, essentially the 371 corridor, question, well, do we want to see, like, say a bright pink building or a bright yellow building out all along those corridors, or do we want to have some sort of standards that regulate colors along there for our commercial buildings? So, and in the subcommittee, I guess that this is what we would arrive to is what the community wants, and if there are things that they want to see, we formulate those and bring them back to the city council.
Thank you. Any other questions for?
I think the question is, does the council want a small, medium, or a large committee? Probably, my suggestion would be not too large, or it becomes unwieldy and you can't get people in. Maybe 5 or 6 or something like that. Cross-section of the community, business owners, chamber, maybe someone from the planning commission, or Desmond and a couple other people, and come back. I think, did we say please come back by December?
Yes, yeah.
Come back to the planning commission with a recommendation by December.
How, the committee that worked, or the group, or whether it's a committee or group that worked on the sign, how big was that? I mean, it seemed like there was, seemed like that was a pretty good group overall. I mean, it definitely flushed out all the concerns. I don't know exactly how that functioned, so Desmond, or does anybody know?
I apologize. I wasn't here at the time.
It varied depending on the time and place, how many were on that. But I generally think that the larger the committee, the more difficult it is to come to a conclusion and get all the people there. But that's just my feeling.
Well, something that, maybe we would want to look at or consider is to start out with getting the committee together and then hold some public input session or sessions to get a larger group's input. And then the idea of having a smaller committee to wrestle it out, I think would be, and come up with it, I think would be important. Because I mean, I agree when it comes down to making the actual decision, if there's too many, that can get to be a problem. But to get community input and, from the business sector and anybody else who has interest, I think that would be really important.
I would suggest we make sure that the chamber is involved, because they have access to all the businesses, or most of the businesses, so someone from the chamber would be a good place to start. I also think that we should look at somebody that's in that commercial real estate business, try to get some input from that standpoint. What are they seeing? What are people, not only, cost properties, but then you also have, if the end result were to be, if you overly limit someone and what they can do, it's one more reason not to come here. If you open it up too wide, you might want to be a little careful. You don't know what you're going to end up with. So, they know that trend, what people are looking for, what businesses are doing, So I would say we just, with that kind of a broad reach, that we let Desmond and city administrator kind of look at that, put some names out there, try and get some feedback from some people perhaps. And, definitely somebody from P&Z that knows what our current ordinance is and where we're at, and the feeling of the board members too, so.
Myself, I would kind of like to see like 5 or 6
I don't think you'll have bigger than
citizens,
that.
citizens, and then planning and zoning, and maybe Jenny. So you get, because I think it's important. Well, and is the whole planning commission going to be involved with this too? I mean, how do you anticipate that functioning? 1 or 2 people, I mean?
And I anticipated something of that nature. I don't think they should be too big of a part of the discussion, because ultimately it's going to have to go through them and then up to you. I think it's important that, we collect this feedback from the community at large.
Yeah. I could picture like 5 or 6 people from the community, 1 or 2 people from planning and zoning there to listen and hear. And then, Desmond, whether you or Jenny, somebody's got to lead it and pull it together. So, that would kind of be my thoughts. I don't know what the rest of the council thinks. But, it sounds like the main purpose is to get outside input. So if we're going to look to get outside input, then we need to get enough people from the outside to give that input.
And hopefully part of their job is to reach out to the people that they would know would be interested to say, what are your thoughts? Get your feedback to me. I can share it with the group and kind of go through that process too. So.
And there's probably a pretty good chance that the business community, the members of the chamber, would probably want the chamber director to kind of be one of the lead people there.
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't know, but that would be, it seems like that's kind of the way that's kind of why the position is there in some ways, and then maybe some of the really interested chamber members, along with maybe some people from the outside, whoever you can put together.
I think it'd be great to get some citizen representation. Just residences, so you're getting a good cross-section of business, residential.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Real
That's a
estate
great
agents.
Mr. Chair, are you ready to make a motion? I'd make a motion that the city council agree with the Planning and Zoning Commission to create a subcommittee to review exterior finishes, or the exterior finishes ordinance language for highway, business, and commercial waterfront districts, and authorize the city administrator and the Planning Commission, you're not a director, are you?
Administrator.
Administrator, thank you. To select a broad number of people, up to 6, to assist with the job.
With the discussion.
Process and review
Review,
options. Bring forward a recommendation to the Planning Commission.
Whatever, that's fine.
I'll second it.
I think it would be helpful, though, if we put a deadline on it. The Planning Commission wanted to see results or recommendation by the December meeting. Would that be acceptable in the motion to have it done by December?
I think your deadline, or I think that deadline is going to depend on how soon the committee gets put together.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll
September,
be
October,
quickly.
November, that's 3 months.
I think it's more their availability, but we're nearing the end of summer, so hopefully they will, have more opportunities for that, but we'll certainly get moving on it, and then we'll just try to get them
How about
together.
if
Well, I think we have the December meeting in mind,
Right.
but do we want to hamstring ourselves just in case?
well, I was going to suggest maybe we ask Desmond and Jenny to get back to us in a month at the next meeting and just give us an update as to how it's going, and then a projection as to time frame with probably that December in mind.
Yeah,
Does
that's
that
fine.
seem reasonable? So you made a motion. Did we get a second?
Yep.
Okay. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Desmond. Item E4, request approval to purchase replacement electrical panel for lift station number 3. Council action motion needed. That Mike, he's an expensive guy. He never comes to us with like $100 needs. It's always big, which is understandable. Tom, you going to speak on this?
Just briefly, I guess.
Okay.
Really what it is
Please
it's
do.
the lift station at the end of Nokomis in Grandview. We're looking to replace the control panel for that lift station. We have had some electrical problems with it. It still runs, but when we've had the electrical pump out to replace this, they're recommending that we replace the whole panel. A lot of the wiring and such inside of it is aged to the point where it's brittle, and we're going to have more and more problems with it. So they're recommending that we replace it. Mike has obtained 2 quotes for that replacement that you should have in your packet. The quote we're going with is electric pump for $17,100. We have Holden Electric secured to do the installation for $1,000. I don't know how much more detail you want on that.
That may very well be adequate. We'll see what questions there are.
Sure.
So, any questions for Tom?
Was this unanimous vote by the committee?
It was. We reviewed it. It was unanimous to recommend approval. It's Tom has funds set aside for such things, so,
Right.
yeah.
It's part of our lift station replacement fund that we've talked about for a number of years now.
Now, how many years old is this panel?
1991.
There you go.
I'll move we approve the request from the Public Works Director to replace the electrical panel for lift station number 3 for a price of $17,100 plus shipping cost as presented.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Item E5, request approval for proposal for engineering design services from WSN for Hazelwood Avenue and Smiley Road. Somebody want to take the lead on
Trying to
that?
think of all the way back to a week ago at this point, but Public Works Committee discussed the general consensus that we wanted WSN to provide us with a proposal for engineering services to do the design work for Hazelwood and Smiley Road South. Both of these roads are a part of our 2018 bond issuance. Because of the complexity of both of these roads, we did not work forward to complete them this year, but rather took the more simple projects, getting those done, and then looking at these two, partially because with Smiley Road, the county's work on County Road 13 and the intersection might impact what we do, so we wanted to make sure we timed that correctly. And so this would just be to allow WSN to get their design work going this fall, so we were ready late winter, early spring to do the bidding process to get these 2 roads reconstructed next summer. So that's in a nutshell, but Mark may be able to speak a little bit more if the council has interest in also including add-on work for any of our sanitary sewer extension as a part of these projects. So that I'll rely a little bit on Mark and Tom as far as history need, if we feel like that's a good idea. But those are 2 options that we have as well.
So question I have is with Smiley Road, does that likely, Smiley Road South, my assumption is from County Road 13 going south down past Corillas and so on. Am I correct with that?
Yes.
So MnDOT, or not MnDOT, but the county is thinking about the fact that they might like to reroute that or see that not terminate at 13 so close to 371. So are they going to be looking at going possibly behind Schaefer's, and do we need to wait to see what their requirements are before we start this, or have they given us requirements yet, or where does that stand?
Right now, they have a meeting set up with city staff, I believe next Tuesday.
Next week, yes, we will see some very preliminary information from WSB and the county on what their proposed plan is for 371 and 13. So we don't know if they're looking to do much more than adding dedicated turn lanes to the intersection. If they want to look at more redesign of the space, we're not sure, but we should have an idea before WSN would start any work. So we wouldn't have to go backwards, so to speak, but we don't know any details yet.
I mean, what Rob Hall did state to us when he met with us here is that, I mean, yeah, perfect world, they'd like to move everything way back, but, you know, the staff kind of outlined the history of Luther Church and across, and going back, going through their parking lot and working with the Schaefer. So we'll see what WSB, Chuck Rickard, and, when Crow Wing County comes back with, but I think right now they're kind of indicating it's going to be mainly dedicated center turn lanes and not really doing much with, with the to locate intersections with Smiley Road.
Okay, so they, at this point, those may stay where they are. Okay.
That's what they've tentatively indicated, but they
could change.
Tom and staff have seen nothing on paper. So
Okay.
We have no firm commitment one way or another.
And so next week may learn some about that.
Should have a better idea where they're going with it, yeah.
Okay. So the goal then this evening is to, with this, would be to, would this approval would be would then be done on an hourly basis for whatever work needs to happen, being we don't really know what exactly is going to happen? Just trying to understand exactly.
Well, on Smiley Road, I look back to the 2013 project that we completed for the city of Nisswa, on that design and the plans. And, right now the proposal is based on, I'll say reclaiming and replacing the road pretty much as is with some, there'll be some minor changes. At that, since it took the cost back in 2013, and I knew they were about $21,000 and looked at the hours with Pat Vesti, and then that's how I came up with the cost. That was a $23,000 figure for that and its current location. Now, if the county comes back with something totally different, we need to rip this up and start over, right? Because if they're going to do something drastic other than what we think they're going to be doing, then we would have to look, just be looking at that. The proposal right now is based on putting the plans and specifications together for reconstructing the road in its current location. I'll say with some modifications from 13 probably down to the first entrance into the Schaefer parking lot based on what the county comes up with.
Would it work to approve the section for Hazelwood, or anything to do with Hazelwood, hold off on the Smiley Road until after we find out what the county does? If we have to come back at the next meeting, that could be approved then? Kind of split this in half, type of thing.
But I was wondering too, if we could do it that way, then we would be able to allow them to go ahead and move forward with the Hazelwood part of things.
Right.
And then the Smiley Road should, because I know the Schaefers have not been contacted either. I talked to Ted Jr. the other day, and he has heard nothing from anybody about it. In fact, at the last, or 2 meetings ago, I wasn't at the last Public Works, but the previous one, or wasn't actually there, when we met with the county about 13, the intersection didn't even come up, which we kind of thought it was gonna come up, and it didn't. And it was, then we learned that it's gonna be going ahead next year. I guess we thought it was another year down the road yet from previous meetings, so. But yeah, if we could go ahead with, I don't know if we can do it that way.
Sure.
I mean, if we could split them up, and then we'll have a better, you guys will have, everyone will have a better idea what the county wants at the next.
And that's fine, as I noted in on the second page, we're kind of, the schedule is we'd like to know by September 21st in order to schedule it and do it
Right.
economically.
Yep.
Yes, we do not need to start on it next week, so as I said, right in the proposal, this cost is based on the city authorizing us, by your September council meeting, or just after it, so we can get it scheduled and get the survey done without chipping ice or pushing snow, so that's, your 2018 project, we actually have completed the work. We're under our engineering agreement that we had. The city will not be, that's where we're at. But I'll just, about 40% of the budget was field survey time, just related to, that's what it takes when you're dealing with all the snow.
Yep.
And making return trips back after the snow melts and everything. So that's what I'm offering, is it just, similar to what we did last year, I'll say, for Cross Lake. Much more efficient to be doing stuff in the fall, getting it prepared for the winter season.
So how are we going to determine whether we would like to consider extending sewer? I mean, I see there's dollars here for exploring that or doing work. Until we've really decided whether we want to move forward with that, I don't know that.
Normally, if you're going to redo the road, that's the time to put in your sewer and water in the right of way or underneath the road.
Well,
Because
right.
you don't want to rip it up and put it in later. Even
But
if you put it in and it's dormant for a couple of years, it's probably more economical to do that. So if we at least have the engineering done and know what the cost is going to be next year, we don't have to go ahead, but we have the plans and profiles and we know everything's going on.
Correct.
Well, the
But-
decision has to be made by next year, when they
Yeah.
do the road.
Right.
But I don't know that there's been any discussion on whether we want to do it, whether it's needed or whether it's desired or required.
This is just for Smiley?
Well,
No,
I think
this
it would be for
too?
Hazelwood.
Hazelwood.
doesn't have sewer now?
No, Hazelwood
the
does
south
have
end.
sewer, it's just not all the way to the south limit of Hazelwood.
From Upper Roy all the way down doesn't have sewer. To
Does
the
not.
371, no.
Okay.
And
Or
I know
Lower
that-
Roy.
And I know there's a pretty strong opinion that that neighborhood does not want sewer. So, to me, it seems really preliminary to be talking about that, or it should have come up a couple months ago or something.
It's just another thing you look at, because you're going to do a road project, that's the time to do it if you're going to put these facilities in.
But we're talking about $21,000, so I'm not really willing to just sign off on $21,000 if the citizens don't want it.
Well,
That's my take.
I'm kind of thinking the same way. If there hasn't been a big push from those property owners to have it, I wouldn't.
it's up to the council, I'm just saying it
As I
makes
say in the
sense. to do
proposal,
it.
it's either, I just say, as the scope of services selected by the city, great, if we select not to do, we would not proceed on doing one nickel's worth of work until the time came. Because if we put the plans together, adding the sewer profiles and services can be done right at the very end. That's not a large portion of that. So I'm just offering, just tonight how you wish to decide to proceed. That's how it's structured. Very much anticipated that you may not decide to do the sewer. And right, it's totally separate. If you don't authorize it, the work, we are not authorized to get it to start the work until you tell us to.
Okay.
And I'll just mention too, I apologize to Jenny and Tom, the copies I gave you for Hazelwood, I had included that $21,000 number, I changed it to $17,000.
Oh, okay.
Just so everyone's
Okay.
aware.
Okay.
So I was stamped preliminary, got it out the door real fast. Patty and I reviewed it, and I realized I had inadvertently included some soil boring costs in there, which I had separately above. So just everyone's aware, what I gave Jenny does have that number revised.
Okay. So, Mark, are you saying that could the council come back in a few months if we had further discussions about something and wanted to look at that further? That's an easy add for you? Or no?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure that's what you were saying.
Right. At any point, if the city just wants to authorize the design for the road, that's fine.
Okay.
And then after the fact, I was providing that information, Tom wanted it now so he could just plan for it. And it's in place, and we don't have to go through another proposal and everything else if we should decide to do this. It's about 2,000 feet of sewer down, Hazelwood. So you have the information there for you to make that decision this November, next January, if that's when you make that decision.
If we just did
Great.
Hazelwood, the price is $44,800 plus $4,000 to $5,000 for geotech to come in, is that correct?
Well, the geotechnical is just recommended if you do sanitary sewer.
Only if you have the sewer.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
right now, there's nothing that I'm aware of along with it, require the city. We go out, you do a few pavement cores, just like you did this year, but those are not soil borings. You spend, they're in the $120 to $150 range just to do the pavement. And the reality is, Tom, I mean, the road is so busted up, we already know what the paving thickness is because, so I'm able to see, but I mean, that cost is recommended if you go ahead with sanitary sewer.
So if we make a motion to do just Hazelwood, the price would be $44,800.
That is correct for just the
Okay.
design, yes.
Okay.
So help me, what would we be designing? I mean, we have a current road. We have a current road, and we would, I mean, just simply thinking we would mill it and repave it.
Well,
There's going to be a bike trail going in there likely.
Yep.
So besides that, what,
Well, that's the biggest part. A lot of that is working with the bike trail, putting I'll say the easements and the right of ways and everything together, just so we did with, this year's projects, and laying that out. But as I said in the proposal, depending on how Matt works with funding and everything, the city's going to want to make provisions for a trail along Hazelwood in the future, just as we've done in, I refer to the SAP bridge application you have now in with the state. We have made provisions for a trail as part of that bridge replacement. So just, I'll offer it, right, for design this road, you are going to be spending some dollars now doing the surveying, putting the right of way together, and information that allows for essentially a 10-foot wide separated bike trail that the city is planning for along that location.
and the dollars would be, that 44,000 or whatever the number is, would be what, set aside or not necessarily set aside, but I suppose kind of set aside for those purposes, but decisions would be made individually as to what steps the city wants to take. Is that correct, or are we looking to do like a whole engineering thing? I'm struggling with why we need to do that much engineering.
But we have to include now for the bike trail. We have to include for the bridge. So we're adding a 10-foot wide bike trail from South Clark Lake Road, or from Lower Roy Lake Road to the end. There was also, if I remember right, there was a request by one company, one entity that lived down, or that on the north end of Hazelwood, whether we would be interested in increasing the tonnage of the road so that their business would be allowed to, when road restrictions are on, they'd be able to get vehicles. They could still stay open and get their cranes and things out, because they can't once the road restrictions go on. They're stuck for however long that's going to be. There was that. So I guess that's, and I know we're reclaiming and redoing. We really don't know what condition the road bed is totally. I'm assuming there's going to be some boring done to determine a few things along that line. Maybe the north end might be more knowable than the south end, simply because there's sewer in the south end or the north end. So the city had to have done something back when that was put in.
I guess I would like to see it tabled and gather some more thought and information about this before we move forward. That's my take.
What are the questions?
First of all, just a better understanding. Second of all, do we need to do, what work do we need to do on the northern part of Hazelwood as it was done when the sewer went in years ago? And then on top of that, we need to decide whether we're going to put sewer in on the south end. I mean, we've got a proposal, and we haven't even, there's been no discussion among council as to what we even want to do. So I think it's pretty reasonable to try to gather some more information.
This has gone through the Public Works Committee, and is the recommendation to go ahead and do this?
Gary, I was not at the last meeting. Gary chaired it.
Yes,
So it seems to me to make sense to split it in two, because you know you're going to do Hazelwood next year.
Correct.
There's no question, you got the money for it, you may as well do the engineering now while there's no snow on the ground and everything can be done reasonably without a lot of cost, and hold off the sewer section of it. Don't do that right now, but do the rest of it. I
The
think that
question
makes
would be
sense.
is, can we get an estimate as to what that's going to cost? Rather than
44.8.
signing up for $44,000 or more dollars.
What's the engineering for Hazelwood going to cost without the sewer aspect of it? That-
44.8.
Yep.
Wow.
If it helps.
That's a huge sum of money for engineering.
It's also that this last year, we also paid a lot more for, well, the potential is we probably paid for more to get the roads done this year than had we had all our ducks in a row and been able to bid it out right away in January, February. We probably could have got a better rate before people were filled up with stuff. Do we want to run that risk again with the Hazelwood project?
I don't know that, do we know that that was an issue, and do we know that that needs to happen?
Well, we don't know that it won't. And we
Well,
know that
that's-
it was.
but that's not good planning.
Okay, every contractor said if you bid it out, when we bidded it out, they were already busy. Everyone that we talked to, even Anderson Brothers said they would rather, you're going to get a better deal pretty much if you're the first one to bid it out, and we weren't. We were one of the last ones to get our stuff bid out. Do we hold off and wait another month, or do we go ahead and pull the trigger on Hazelwood? And we can't go ahead. Can we go ahead and do it without any engineering?
I don't know.
Not with the bike
Can't.
trail and the bridge.
Nope. No, because we're probably going to have to it's Nisswa. I mean, we're probably going to have to straighten out easements maybe, or fix property lines, and we don't know. We're going to add a 10-foot bike lane. We know we're adding a wider bridge, hopefully, next summer, but we don't know when that's going to happen. Are we going to have to, do we have this, it's a 66-foot right-of-way right now. Do we have enough property, and how is it going to lay in there so that, and how does it affect the residents down there, and how do we mitigate the negativity of affecting various residents?
And there, I do believe there is some question on that, how that all lays in there.
There is, especially at the corner.
Mhm.
I mean, what's a month going to change? What are we going to decide in a month from now?
Well, my thought is $44,000 is a hell of a lot of money for what it seems like we're going to get accomplished. I mean, I'm about watching the citizens' money. That's my perspective on most everything. And to me, $44,000 seems absorbent. And I don't know that there's not a clear definition as to really what's going to happen. There's a lot of discussion here about what it might be.
Well, I think you're talking about Hazelwood. I think if we remove the sewer, the rest is pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
So the question is,
Sanitary sewer
can I
extension.
get a breakdown as to why it doesn't cost $44,000? Seems like an awful lot of money
Do
for
you
a half.
want the engineer to go back and give you man-hours and drilling core sample costs and
That's typical in
everything
construction.
else?
That's been my life, that's very typical in construction.
I think you have to have some reliance on the integrity of the engineering firm that we're employing here. If you think they're overcharging us, then you should say that, but other than that...
All I'm asking for is a breakdown of the cost so that the city can make an intelligent decision. And I think that's prudent business. It happens every day in construction, every day.
Why wasn't that asked earlier when he could have presented that with us tonight?
Why
and we
didn't
could make a decision
I don't know,
tonight.
why didn't this come to us a month or two ago? I mean,
Well, we
it's
had
all
it
speculation.
from, the weekend.
It's all speculation.
What-
Like I said,
What
like-
do you think is speculation?
Well, what I'm hearing amongst the council is conjecture. I would like to
Well,
know,
speculation and conjecture are two very different things, so what do you mean?
what I'm asking for is I would like to see a breakdown of how that $44,000 is going to be a cost to the city. Because again, how we spend our money is extremely important to me. And I don't have a good sense of what that is. People are talking about what they think it is, but we don't know what it is.
Well, I don't think anybody was talking about how we thought the bid was drawn up. I think that's a question Mark will answer. We
So-
were just talking about what was going to be provided and why we think why we think it's needed.
And I don't think anybody has said it's not needed. I
Well,
think a request for a breakdown of costs is
so
wise.
you
is
don't
wise.
think figuring out right-of-way, easements, bike trail, bridge, you don't think that warrants any engineering?
That's not what I said. I said just the opposite of that.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood you.
I said I do believe engineering is necessary.
Okay, sorry.
But the breakdown of the costs, we have not seen.
Okay.
I mean, I've heard it say, well, engineering for the bridge is included. I don't know that it's included. Maybe it's part of a separate package. I don't know. I would like to see that broken down so that we can look at it. That's a very standard construction.
Can you break it down for us, Mark?
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, you don't have it broke down, itemized right in front of you, but can you give us a breakdown of what
I'll
we're...
break down. I mean, what the mayor, I do that for the city of Baxter. I mean, they just want our spreadsheet. They don't care about anything else. So, I mean, I will gladly give the city this one breakdown, of the, because as they noted, I mean, just as she's familiar with Cross Lake and the trail. I'll just, once you have a trail involved, that is a large part of the cost in dealing with that trail and working out with all the landowners. There's just a lot of things that come up. So so I will gladly provide that information to the city.
And that's all part of the 44 that you're
Yes.
just quoting now?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I explained to staff. Well, that's what I listed in the proposal, is that I'm not going to blindly go in and just do take the line. I know there's a trail there. I mean, that's what the city is working on and funding for. We need to make provisions for it. And you don't want to spend money doing a design and rebuilding it and then re-spending money ripping up a road or changing something that's 2 years old, because now you're building the trail. And just similar, the bridge is separate, but we still need to coordinate this with a future bridge design that we've already turned in to the state of Minnesota. So yes, understanding that, we're not proposing to go to an urban section. I won't say that's, that was talked about by the city 8-9 years ago. Depending on how the trail lays out, there could be a couple segments on here that if your trail is limited because of right-of-way space or other considerations, and then you have to do what's, just as the city of Lakeshore did, about 3,000 feet of their 12,000 feet of trail, the trail moved right up to the road, and then there's a curb and gutter because they didn't have the space. Well, once you put curb and gutter in, now you got to have storm catch basins and stormwater ponds. So then that changes the whole dynamics of it. We're not assuming it's going there, but if that, if things change and more, I'll just advise you now then that we would have to revisit what it will take for engineering for that segment. So, but I'll provide to the city a breakdown, of that, what I outlined on page 1. Because, just even, it's to design, but it's public bidding. It's to request CDN, just what we did for your projects this year. So, I'll give you those costs.
That'd be excellent.
Mark, don't we get billed we get billed as the hours you put in it?
That is correct, yes.
So we look at an invoice and we say, yep, you did this, this, and this. This isn't saying that we're just going to write you a check for $44,800. We'll be invoiced for what you did and what engineering took place, and then we'll pay accordingly. Is that?
That is correct.
And that's how it always goes, correct?
How it always goes. I mean, I don't give it, I mean, at any time staff would want a breakdown of how many hours Pat Bessie spent on this, but I mean, as I said, right now, your 2017 projects, our engineering agreement was for $74,000. We did not reach that. I mean, right now, I think our last billing was about $70,200 or something. And like I said, we're done with the project, we're done with design, now we're moving in construction phase, so we are moving into that part of the agreement. You won't be billed for $74,000 because it didn't cost that to finish.
Right. Right, so, I mean, either way, we're getting billed for what we do and what we need.
But in the construction world, a very common practice is, especially, is you have two types of contracts. You have like bids and you have time and material. Time and material usually gives estimates, breakdown estimates. Bid contracts, you don't, because you've agreed to do it for that price, whether you make money or lose money. So a time and material quote, you usually get a breakdown of approximates. This is how much we anticipate it's going to cost. And then you have something to reflect back on to discuss, gee, it's great, it's less, or why is it more? And there's more of an accountability level to that.
Mark, how long would it take to put a breakdown together?
Well, I would have it to staff mid next week. I'm meeting with the DNR up at Spire Valley. I think tomorrow, the rest of this week is booked for me, but I would put it together early next week and have it to staff mid next week.
That'd be
And
nice.
if we delay it a month, what's that going to, is that going to negatively impact, how would that negatively impact? I mean,
It
we're
does
still,
not. As I
you
said-
still have plenty of time.
Yep. Staff on this will, as I said, we want to make a decision no later than your September meeting. As they state by September 21st, so that's fine, gentlemen. Now they say, I'll gladly put it together and we'll get it to staff and you can have it for next month.
Can we have it by the first Wednesday of September for the Public Works meeting?
Well, yes,
Thank you.
My
That's
idea would
great.
get it to staff next week.
The only other thing I'd like to say on this is we should figure out what we're going to do with sewer. Because I think it's extremely short-sighted not to put sewer in and not have looked at where this is connecting, where it's connecting on the other end and everything, and just base it off of people who live along there's decision. I think the committee needs to look at this and, I mean, this road's coming up. We got to do it, so we got to make this decision, and I hope that we base it on facts and looking down the road as to what we're going to require and not short-sight ourselves.
Good point.
Okay,
All right.
So are we tabling this till September?
I believe so.
Yeah. We need a motion on that.
Motion to table?
You should.
Motion to table.
You should.
Okay. And yeah, Mark, as soon as you get that to us, then Jenny will get it out to us. We can start taking a look at it. And if we have questions or anything, we can get in touch with you. And then hopefully by, the next meeting, we're really squared away and away you go. Okay. Moving right along.
Was
Well,
there- was
did we
there a
decide-
motion
We didn't
to-
decide what to.
Was
We
there
didn't
a
have a
motion to
motion on that.
table?
I motioned. I gave a
Was
motion to
Motion
table.
Table.
Motion to
Do we get a
table.
second?
I don't know if you need to on a motion, do you?
You have to vote on it.
Table?
You have to vote.
Okay. Is there a second? I'll second it. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
No.
Now we have, did we decide where we were going with Smiley?
I thought we just tabled both.
Table.
Table the
Okay.
whole thing.
Okay, very good. Just wanted to clarify that. Item E6, authorize city staff to obtain quotes for geometric redesign of Main Street and Nisswa Avenue intersection.
Really, all that is the question was brought up about four-way or three-way stops at the intersection over here by the post office, what signage is required, distances for warning signs, if any other appurtenances, concrete, anything else that would need to be changed in order to accommodate that. So we're looking at we're asking the question to obtain quotes for that work.
So I brought, go ahead,
Oh,
Jenny.
I was just going to provide a quick update, if that helps. With SPAC, here last week at the city discussing the Grandview Lodge traffic study, Mark had some discussions with them as well, with Bryant, about this project, just to get some feedback from him. And their suggestion was to look at some kind of study, whether it's pedestrian study or what, how much activity is at that intersection, to see what would warrant a change in the traffic pattern. We talked about warrants last week as far as wanting to meet criteria so that you have the appropriate signage to make sure that you're just making, have the proper rules or regulations for how that works. So that's something new that we were discussing last week. And so Mark provided some information from them, and then depending on if we wanted to do a joint, if we wanted to utilize a company such as SPAC or WSN, and just trying to figure out the best way to approach that, there were some options there. So just wanted to put that out there for discussion.
I had talked with Jenny a little bit before the meeting about this, and I don't know who has seen it and who hasn't, but Desmond actually put together a real nice idea for that intersection. And, my thought is, I'm not so sure we need to go out for that. Right now, we have a two-way stop. Probably could use a three-way stop coming from the north, because, to be honest, that's where most of the problems are coming from. Mm-hmm. It's the people coming into town from the north, and it says 30 miles an hour just a short distance before that intersection. If we looked at what would it be required to change that sign to 15 miles an hour, maybe it's an ordinance change or something, and we put a stop sign from the north, I think really we got to solve the problem.
Parking issues, sight lines.
But if people are stopping, then the sight lines totally changes. I mean,
Right,
then you don't have that traffic zipping in coming from the north that
Yeah.
you can't see, because they'll
Yeah.
be coming to a stop, and then
Don't disagree, but I think it's going to be hard to see that stop sign.
it may have to be out on the street.
Yeah.
It may have to be one that sits out on the old wheel hub out on the street, so to speak. I mean, probably something a little better than that, but yeah, I mean, any stop sign that you put there, and it may be, Desmond had a real nice layout. I was looking at it, I don't know, a month or 6 weeks ago or sometime, and it was great.
Well,
As we kind of, I'm sorry, Don. Go
no.
ahead.
Well, I was just saying, this motion would be to authorize the staff to obtain quotes. When they come back, if they're too high or you don't think it covers the work, you don't accept the quote. But I think if we can at least find out what a professional engineer would suggest, that would come back in his quote, and we'd have an idea on the price. If you're concerned about spending the money, we don't have to accept the quote if you don't want it. But at least we have a registered traffic engineer, because when you get into warrants and everything else, if there's an accident, you can be liable if you don't do it right.
That's the problem.
That's what I was going with,
Yeah.
is this a liability issue? And if it's a liability issue, I again think that would be short-sighted not to at least go down the avenue and investigate it,
Yeah.
because we're not experts in traffic.
Well, we could certainly look to get quotes, and maybe Desmond and Tom can put together what they think that they can do and provide there, and we can take a look at it in a month.
So I'd make a motion that we authorize city staff to obtain quotes for the geometric redesign of Main Street and Nisswa Avenue intersection.
Second.
Second that.
Seconded by Jacobson, actually. Okay, any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Tom. E7, personnel updates for August of 2018. Thank you, Desmond.
I'll make a motion that we accept the personnel updates for August 2018 as presented.
Did you want to say anything about that at all, Jenny, or no?
No, I don't have any
Okay.
comments.
Okay, very good. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Johnson. Any discussion on the motion?
The only thing is, we're not given the higher hourly cost, which we normally do. It's not a problem tonight, but I think the next time we do it, you're hired at so much per hour. It'd be nice to know what that higher cost is.
Makes sense. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item E8, request from Nisswa Chamber to close City Hall Street on September 15th.
I received an email from Sean Hansen regarding their September Fall Festival, and she relayed to me that this has been something that has been brought forward to the council in the past, so I rely a little bit on your history with that. I didn't see anything reflected last year, but that was just my starting off, so I could have just not recalled some of that. So they're looking to block City Hall Street. The time and the details, I believe, are in the email here. As part of the event, shouldn't be much disruption, but I think it helps facilitate the activities in the area.
Has the police chief been, is he aware of this? Does he have any concerns or anything that we should hear about? Or?
Thank you for the question. Yes, Sean did reach out to him, and Chief Taylor did not have any concerns about this arrangement. It's the same as in the past, so he is comfortable.
Okay.
I'd make a motion to approve the request from the Chamber to close City Hall Street on September 5th. Hours noted within the letter from Sean Hansen.
Second.
Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. F, old business. F1, memo from Jenny Max, new policy and application for city commissions and committees, tabled from the July 18th meeting, requests to table until September 19th.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we table the request until the September council meeting.
Second.
Second by Ryan. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Council reports. Mayor's report. I would just like to say that this morning, Jenny and I attended the Mayor's Prayer Breakfast at Grandview Lodge, and it was really quite an exciting time. They call it the Mayor's Breakfast, but it's actually kind of an all civil servants sort of breakfast, and they honored the military. They honored mayors. What am I trying to think of? The township leaders and all, just basically all leaders, civil servants in the area, and it was a great time. There was some good music. There was a lot of good conversations. I think there was probably 450 people that attended that, and then there was a speaker. I think his name was Charles Duke. He was actually one of the astronauts that walked on the moon, and he shared his kind of experience in NASA and his other and his time on the moon, and so on and so forth. And it was very inspiring. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Was it people all over the state or just local?
Local. It's actually a local group that puts this on, and it's all you sponsor. It's one of those you sponsor a table sort of thing. So you buy a table, and then you invite, I think it's about 8 people per table or something, 8 or 10 people per table. And so I don't know, there was 30 some, close to 40 tables, or maybe more than 40 tables. But it was packed to the doors, so.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really neat. Might be something that we would want to consider doing as a group, sponsoring our own table. We'd have to figure out the logistics of a quorum, but it's the second year I've attended. Jenny, you were there last year, weren't you? No? Okay. For some reason I thought you had just started and you were there, but so that's all I have. Don?
Normally I would have something, but today I don't.
It's okay. Gary?
Normally, I wouldn't have anything, and tonight I don't.
Thank you, Ross.
I'm good.
Okay, John? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make it.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you very much. Conclude at 8:41 PM.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Kind of nice to have a little shorter agenda tonight.
Yes.
Is that a sign that